Welcome to another episode of One on One with Mitch Lafon. I am your host, Mitch Lafon. My guest this week is Don Dokken. Co-hosting is Bill Leverty of Firehouse. Good day, Bill. How are you?
Hey, Mitch, doing great, man. How you doing?
Doing absolutely wonderful. Of course, let me remind the folks that this episode is brought to you by the Heavy Montreal Festival, taking place August 7th, 8th, and 9th at Parc Jean Drapeau in Montreal, Quebec, Canada. Korn, Faith No More, Slipknot will be there. They've added Extreme, who are doing their full Porno Graffiti album, and Dokken will be there, who is, of course, our guest. You've had a chance to play with Dokken. You've toured with them, or not toured with them, but certainly been at festivals and other shows with them. Fan of Dokken?
Huge fan of Dokken, and not only have I gotten to play, opening up for Dokken, but before Firehouse ever got a record deal, I got to meet Don Dokken because I worked for the catering department of the promoter here in Richmond, Virginia, when Dokken opened up for Judas Priest back in, I don't know, was it 86 or something like that?
Wow.
And so in the catering deal that I worked out, I got to meet everybody. And so got to talk to Don quite a bit. He was really cool to me then. Little did I know that I'd be opening up for him on a couple of different tours. Yeah, so he's a great guy. Great singer, one of the premier vocalists of my generation, certainly. And the fact that he sang all those, songs that influenced me quite a bit, and on songs that, I didn't even know until I talked to him that he sang on the Scorpions Blackout record. I mean,
yes,
pretty
he did.
cool.
Yeah, he did. Now, they've added Mark Boals to the band last year. Mark played with Yngwie Malmsteen, Uli John Roth, a great singer in his own right. And what was interesting is during the interview, Don admits, he says, listen, my voice is not what it was when I did those albums, and I need a little bit of help, and Mark fills that role. I think that's actually quite refreshing that an artist admits that or says that, because there's always that pride and that ego and that vainness where you go, no, 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 I'm the same guy I was when I was 20, and none of us are, right?
Well, I'll tell you the cool thing about Don, and I've told this to him. I said, you've got the tone. When Don sings, you just go, wow, doesn't that sound good? So to me, it doesn't matter if he's going lightning and singing all these really high notes or not. I mean, he still hits most of them. But when he sings, it's Don Dokken, and it just sounds so good. And he's also, just a super cool guy, and that's just kind of reflected on his stage performance. So it's a great show. John Levin's just a phenomenal guitar player, and I just love them all.
Yeah, and of course Mick Brown, who spends some time with Ted Nugent, and then the rest of the time with Dokken is another great one. Speaking of great, you have your new single "Strong," which people can choose or pick out at Leverty.com. I'll keep saying it. You also have a vocal prowess that was hidden from fans for many, many years, and I'm glad it's out there and people get to enjoy what you do, not just on guitar but vocally.
Oh, thanks, brother. I appreciate it, man. It's a work in progress, and I'm having a lot of fun working.
Yeah, you really are, and of course, I will encourage people to go pick up the Kiss song that you do, Deuce. From the A World with Heroes album. You can go download that at iTunes, because that is where you just hit the grand slam. It's not even a home run. That's a grand slam right there.
Oh, man, I appreciate it. I hope Gene gets to hear it one day, because that was my favorite Kiss song, and one that I just played over and over and over and over again off that first live album they did. And it's a dream come true to be able to sing on that, and I appreciate you inviting me to do that.
Yeah, that was my pleasure. And of course, Don Dokken is on that doing Cold Gin. So there you have
cool.
it. Yeah, that was a great version as well. Let's sit back, enjoy Don Dokken talking about Mark Boals, talking about what he considers to be the ultimate Dokken record. And I think his choice will surprise many. He talks about his vocals. He talks about George Lynch, but I told him, you must say something positive, no negative stuff, and his answer I thought was just great. And of course, he plays at Heavy Montreal. Trying to think what day he's on. I believe he's on the last day on August 9th, but I certainly will check that. Let's sit back and enjoy Don Dokken.
Mitch Lafon, talking with Dokken.
Rockin' with Dokken.
That's talking with Dokken.
Don, there's a lot of stuff to ask you about, in fact. We'll start off with new music. The last one came out in 2012, I believe it was.
Yeah, Broken Bones came out in 2012.
2012. It was on Frontiers Records, which, is a label that does quite a bit for melodic rock and stuff. At the time when I spoke to you, you said that was it. There was going to be no more. Is that still true, or has anything changed?
Probably. I mean, I'll keep writing music. I'll keep writing songs, recording songs, because I love to do it. But as far as, spending, tens of thousands of dollars making a record, because I don't do, Pro Tools, I use it, but I don't, a lot of bands are making these very inexpensive records.
Right.
You think they sound up to the standards that I want. For myself, I'm on real drums and Broken Bones, we spent, $100,000 making that record. I spent the whole dance practically. Because, I went to Tommy Lee's house in his studio, Atrium, did the drums, and I took stuff home. We did guitars for real. We don't use plugins. It costs a lot of money. So, and then, you put the record out, it goes straight to free downloading. When you put a record out on a Monday, literally it's on free downloads on Friday. It's just the way it is.
Yeah.
So how do you make any money? And now they've announced, all the new cars all over the world don't have CD players unless you order it as a special option. It's all iPod input, and that's it. There's no more, they call it physical media. All the record companies are saying we're not going to do any more physical media, even though I have record contract offers for another record, and they said if we put out another record, we'll probably just do it straight to iTunes, which means you'll never make any money. Right. Or they'll put out maybe a limited edition vinyl, maybe $1,000.
Yeah, so then what would motivate you to keep writing music? Is it just sort of what you do? That's what an artist does, or what's the purpose?
Yeah, look, Van Gogh died before he was famous.
Right.
Van Gogh was painting, and he died young. He wasn't painting to make money. All his money came after him and his son, his brother died. He just painted because he had no choice, because you see a vision, you want to capture it on a canvas.
Right.
I don't see any different analogy as music. If I have an idea or a melody in my head, if I don't put it down, I get frustrated because it keeps going round and round in my head. I have to purge it.
Right. Now, you also, the last solo album you put out was in 2008. Have you given any thought of, that was Solitary, have you given any thought of putting out another Don Dokken solo album?
No, I haven't really. Even Solitary I didn't ever release. I put it out on iTunes just for a few months, took it off.
Okay.
I never sold to it. All the record companies didn't understand it.
Mm-hmm.
It was a departure. It's all ballads. It's all very cathartic. And they said, oh, but it's not rockin', it's not rock and roll. And I said, I don't know, tell that to Sting, tell it to Robert Plant. I don't understand where you're coming from. They just want to hear. I've had record companies approach me and say, we want another Tooth and Nail.
Right.
Well, that's like asking Paul McCartney to write another Yesterday. It is what it is. You are where you are in your life. You see the world differently. The world's changed. Everything changes, and it affects what you write about. So I did Solitary as was just a bunch of songs and poetry I had laying around for years and years and years. So I did 9 songs and put it to tape. But nobody really got it. The people who have their record love it.
Yeah. Yeah,
the record company, you have it.
Yeah, I have it on CD actually, and I thought it was quite interesting. It was a departure, but I don't think it was meant to be a Dokken record. It was meant to be something different, and I enjoy the tracks, quite frankly. Mark Boals has joined Dokken. Is that a permanent move? Is that a sort of a transition move? And what does he bring to the band? He's been with Yngwie Malmsteen, Ring of Fire, Uli John Roth. What's it like to have Mark in the band?
Well, if anybody knows about him, he's a lead singer.
Right.
And it's what he does. He's a lead singer. And he was doing background vocals with me on Broken Bones. He did some background vocals because he has a very high voice, and he was hitting the notes that I couldn't hit. So I'm older. I lost that range. I don't have that range. Actually, I'm singing way better these days. My voice is much, much better than it used to be.
Right.
I'm actually doing 3, and I was hitting all the notes. But it's nice to have another strong. I mean, Sean was great. Sean's a great bass player. He sang backgrounds, but I didn't know that Mark played bass. So when he was doing the background vocals, I think Sean was doing a solo project. He's playing with other bands. He's playing with Doug Aldrich.
Right.
He did a video. And I said, well, I'm thinking maybe it's time to get another bass player, a permanent bass player, though, that doesn't have side projects per se. And I asked Mark if he knew anybody, and he says, well, I play bass. And I said, oh, you do? I didn't know that. He said, yeah, I was in Ted Nugent. I said, you played bass in Ted Nugent? He said, yeah. I said, I didn't know that. So I asked if he'd be interested. He says, yeah, I love talking music. I like music. I like the style you guys do. It's right up my alley. So he said, yeah, I'd like, to play in the band. He has a side gig, as you could call it. He plays in Vegas at a ongoing show at the Tropicana called Raiding the Rock Balls.
Right, which I've heard of.
The guitar player in Heart, what's his name? Can't remember. Anyway, he's the musical director, the guy from Heart.
Right.
And so they do like 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s. It's like a rock show. It's kind of like, so that's what he does as a day gig, I should call it. But, I don't think it's rewarding as a musician just to be playing those kind of things every night, in a theater, So he loves going on the road with us and rocking out, and playing rock shows for 2 hours. So he's in the band permanent. We're just getting ready to do new press photos, and we're having fun. We got a lot of shows booked. We've already got 30 shows booked this summer. It's a lot of shows.
It really is. And of course, you're playing the Heavy Montreal Festival in August, which is going to be exciting. It's a big stage. There's usually about 40,000 people out in the audience. How do you prepare for a festival show compared to a club show?
Well, the festival shows are shorter, usually because you've got 10, 15 bands on a festival.
Mm-hmm.
Several stages to keep the set time short to an hour and 10. So it's kind of like, we played 8 hits and we're done.
Yeah.
That's the way it is. We just did M3 Festival, hour set. I'm leaving in a couple of weeks to go to Sweden and Greece to do. So in Sweden Rock Festival, we'll play an hour or 75 minutes probably, and it goes by quickly. And then we'll go to Greece the next day and do 2 shows in Athens and Thessaloniki, where we'll play our headlining set for 2 hours. So we delve into more deeper tracks, like we'll do Heaven Sent, and we'll do Burn Like a Flame, and Lost Behind the Wall, and Sunless Days, and more unknown, quote-unquote, non-MTV tracks.
Right.
So it's nice to do that, too, because I can play what I want. I understand you go to play Montreal, M3, these big festivals. The bands only see you for an hour, and of course they don't want you to play a bunch of songs they might not be that familiar with. They want to hear Into the Fire, Breaking the Chains, and My Dreams, It's Not Love, and on and on. So I understand that. So there's the difference. Festivals, it's a all-hit show, and when you headline, you have the luxury of playing 2 hours, and you can play a lot more tracks for the hardcore fans that will know those songs, and plus there's songs that are satisfying to me.
Yeah, now you mentioned before that Mark helps you hit some of the notes that you can't hit anymore at your age. Is there something you do to prepare differently now? I mean, if you're a baseball player and you start getting into being 30, 40, you have to maybe ice your arm or get a massage before you go pitch. Is there anything you do differently to prepare for a show now?
Yeah. Now I have to warm up for an hour.
Okay.
At least an hour. Like right now, I'm talking to you husky because I haven't sang today, and I've been talking all morning to people working out. But when I get ready to go for a show, I don't talk at all during the day, and I sing very light at sound check.
Okay.
And then an hour before I go to the show, in the hotel room, I turn on the shower, sit on the toilet, and close the door, and let the whole bathroom completely fill up full of hot water steam, breathe steam in, purge my sinuses, cough up phlegm, and then start doing my scales, la, 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 la. The same thing most singers do.
Right.
La, la, and start slowly go singing higher and higher and higher and higher. And plus, I've taken vocal lessons over the years by famous vocal coaches like Ron Anderson, and he's taught me how to hit higher notes without straining my voice.
Right. Is there anything that you do in terms of diet-wise? Are you taking tea with ginger? Are you avoiding certain foods? No Indian food on the day of
Yeah. I mean, the last thing I do is have a cappuccino,
right,
coffee with milk in it. you're going to be phlegming. It gets stuck in your throat. It happens to everybody. Last thing you want to do, especially if you're like me, lactose intolerant.
Mm-hmm.
I used to drink coffee with milk in it, an hour before I go on stage, and I'm coughing up phlegm.
Right.
And you can't do it. You just can't do it. In the 80s, when I was, my peak, I guess you could say,
yep.
I didn't warm up. I didn't do anything. I'd smoke a cigarette and go on and sing, and I sounded great. But I was younger, and my voice was, I don't know, it's just the way it was. Plus, in the 80s, we were doing 50, 60, 70 shows a year.
Right.
I mean, we were really, we're playing 4 and 5 in a row, day off, 4 and 5 in a row, day off. We played 50 shows with AC/DC in Europe in 8 weeks.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like a muscle. You're singing every day, and so your voice gets stronger. But then again, it only takes that one note, one time on stage where I'm not paying attention, and I sing too hard, I press down too hard on my vocal cord, and it's over. My voice is hurt and needs to rest, and I can't rest it because I have to go do 4 more shows in a row, and I've hurt my voice, and it just gets worse and worse and worse and worse. So I learned I have to be careful now. Really, really, I have to respect my voice. I have to take care of my voice, because otherwise the fans go on the internet and say, hey, I just saw a concert last night, and Don sucked.
Right. So fans, you were saying fans go on the internet and they say Don sucked last night, and it gets frustrating, I suppose.
Well, frustrating, but it's honest. So, I mean, if I'm not good, I'm not good.
Right.
What the fans don't understand is they expect you to sound exactly like you did on the record, which we recorded 30 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
They expect you to sound amazing every night. They don't take into consideration you're driving in a snowstorm. Mm-hmm. You're in a tour bus with heat going, dry heat. You're talking, doing interviews on the radio in the morning. It takes its toll on your voice, but they don't really care. They just like, look, you better be amazing every night, or we're gonna critique you and say bullshit.
Right.
So they don't understand what it's like. I mean, look, we're going to Sweden Rock, 10-hour flight. We play Sweden Rock. The next day, after the show, we have to fly for 4 hours to Athens, Greece, and that same day we have to fly to Thessaloniki and do a show. I'm going to be completely burned out.
Right.
But I'll try to take a nap, sleep for 2 or 3 hours, get up, warm up my voice, and hopefully it'll be okay. And the next day I got to fly back to Athens to do another 2-hour show. It takes a toll on you, and the fans don't really give a shit, you know?
And that's the good thing about having Mark in the band, is that he can provide a little bit of relief during the show with his voice, which is good.
Yeah, whenever I say, well, Mark, tonight I did my warm-ups, this part of my range is a little dodgy. Mm-hmm. I can hit it up, but I think I'm going to strain. So I'll sing the lower note on the harmony, you hit the harmony.
Right.
And he's a tenor naturally, so for him it's easy. The problem Mark has in Dokken is trying to sing lower. He always wants to go way up high. If you've heard him sing with Yngwie or Uli, he sings really high.
Oh, yes, he does. And it's
great.
Does he inspire you? Like, does having a talent like Mark in the band really get you thinking, you know what? It is time for a new album. This is a good lineup. We should get something on record. Yeah,
I think it is time. I think Nick and John are happier with Mark in the band. Mark's really solid.
Yep.
And they're really, John especially says, he says it sounds better. With Nick doing the low vocal, me taking the middle, Mark taking the high, it sounds just like Dokken, a little more than it did with Sean.
Right.
And it's a good lineup. So
it really is a good lineup. Let me ask you about the quote-unquote classic lineup. Everybody says, is there going to be a reunion? We know there's not going to be a reunion, but let's see if we can say something positive about George and Jeff. What did George bring to the band when you were putting the band together and you heard him play guitar? What made you say, I need this guy in my band?
Well, because George, I thought, in my opinion, coming from the L.A. Hollywood scene, I saw Randy Rhoads break out and go to Ozzy. I saw Van Halen come out in 78 with the new first album. Dokken played with Van Halen in 77 and 8 and 9. And I played with Quiet Riot in those days. And to me, when I saw George, when he was playing with Mitch and the boys, I felt like George was kind of heir to the throne after Eddie. He's a really great guitar player.
He is.
And a very unique I call it the jack-off vibrato he does, So he had a lot of chops. I was the lead guitar player on Dokken and the lead singer, which was a lot of work, but I was considered a good guitar player, but I wasn't on the caliber of George. No. So what he brought to the table, I didn't know, he really is not a songwriter per se, He doesn't really write songs. He comes up with killer, really great guitar riffs.
Right.
He gives me the riff, I take it and run with it and turn it into a song.
Right. And is there anything that you miss about him in the band?
No.
No. But
I mean, even look, when I did Breaking the Chains,
right,
he wasn't a member of the band. I hired Mick and George as studio musicians to play on a solo record called Don Dokken Breaking the Chains.
Right.
The album came out in Germany. It was called Don Dokken. It was a solo album. I didn't have a band. But then I got a manager, and I got offered a tour to go out to Oyster Cult.
Right.
And I went, oh, shit. I got offered to go out and do my first arena tour, which was my dream come true.
Right.
And I have no band. So that's when I called back George and Mick and said, you guys want to put a permanent band together. And then we had no bass player because by then we had a year downtime. Juan had left and joined Rat.
Right.
And they'd had success with Out of the Cellar. That's when I went out and found Jeff playing at a bar,
right,
playing top 40 songs. And he joined the band. And there was the original, quote unquote, the lineup that everybody knows about.
Right.
So that was it. But unfortunately, I didn't know George very well, personality-wise, and we had friction from day one. I mean, even when he flew to Germany to play on Breaking the Chains, we just didn't get along.
Okay.
It's not that he's a bad guy or I'm a bad guy. We just have totally different personalities.
Right. Which is fair.
And that was a problem. And I felt after we got more successful, get a little money in your pocket, we could afford to buy our first house, everybody get more happy, and we'd end up, bonding or becoming more of a band because everybody would realize we've hit the lottery. When you get famous, have a hit record, you've hit the lottery.
Yeah, and it's a rare thing. I mean, there are millions of bands that fail every year, and one that has any kind of success, even back then, is a rare oyster. I mean, it's something to hold on to, revere, fight for, et cetera, et cetera. What about Jeff Pilson? I mean, he's now doing the stuff with Foreigner. He added a lot to the sound as well. He's sort of like the Michael Anthony of Dokken. His backing vocals were very instrumental in the sound, in my opinion. I don't know if you share that opinion.
I do.
What about Jeff? What did he add to Dokken?
Well, Jeff was probably the most multi-talented of anybody in the band. He plays bass well. He plays guitar well.
Yep.
He's got strong hands as a bass player. He's very strong hands, so he's really good at playing. Which George plays very light strings. He uses an 8-gauge string. They're very, very light. I play a 9. Very, very light. So when you're playing a 12-string guitar, acoustic, with heavy strings, you got to have really strong hands.
Right.
Which I don't feel George had or myself. It's not his forte to play 12-string.
Right.
But Walt was really good at it. He plays great 12-string, great acoustic guitar. Most everything, like in Dysfunctional, is a good example. A lot of sitar that I did. Jeff played all the 12 strings, a lot of 12-string acoustic on Dysfunctional. Jeff usually did all the guitars on all the records, the acoustic parts, because he's good at it. And he's very exact. He's got a really good right hand. His picking is very even, very precise. He's not a shredder. He's not a lead guitar player. But he's a very, very proficient rhythm guitar player.
Right.
So, and he plays piano. So you got a guy that plays bass. He plays guitar. He plays piano. This guy's very multifaceted. And he seems to have a knack. He was always good at, recording.
Right.
When the 4-track came out, he learned it. When the 8 tracks came out, he was good at it. Then he bought a 12-track Akai, and he had that in science. And then when Pro Tools came out, I went out to his house a couple of years ago. He's very, very proficient at Pro Tools recording.
Right.
So he's, might call him a jack of all trades. I wouldn't say he's a master of none, but he's a very strong singer.
Yep.
But he's very good at things. So he brought I'm good at singing and writing. George is a great lead guitarist.
Right.
Makes a solid drummer.
Agreed.
And actually a lyricist. But the question to be answered is, Jeff brought a lot of stuff to the table as far as being multi-talented.
Yeah, and also a lot of sense of melody, I think too. I mean, you have a sense of melody too, but I just hear what he did with Dokken, and I hear what he's doing now with Foreigner, and it's not that different. There's a way that he approaches songs that I just think is fantastic. And I'll finish with this today.
Jeff, Jeff went to college,
right.
Music. I think he was a music major.
Right.
And so he went to college, studied music, musicology. I don't read music. I can barely do tablature. I know what the chords are and what the notes are. I don't even sight read and tab, barely.
Right.
And I've been learning that in the last 10 years. So I was very just, sat in the garage and practiced. That's where I come from. And Jeff went to college. He went to school, got to play piano. And so he brought to the table when I'm doing a harmony, he got it because his influences were similar to mine, the Beatles for one thing.
Yep.
So we both were good at dissecting various bands like the Hollies and ELP and all these bands that are very melodic. He's good at structuring harmonies, as am I feel. So that way it was an extra person there to arrange the harmonies that we became famous for.
Yeah, and I would certainly say that the classic lineup really offered quite a bit. But what fans are going to see at Heavy Montreal with the new lineup, I think they're going to be very pleasantly surprised. And I'll end with this because we've gone over 20 minutes. What is the one album that defines Dokken, which is sort of the masterpiece for you?
For me, the masterpiece is Dysfunctional.
Okay.
Definitely. Because it was the one record that we didn't have any rules.
Right.
We had no record. I wrote Dysfunctional was going to be on my second solo album after Up from the Ashes.
Right.
I built a recording studio by then. I owned my own studio, so money wasn't an issue. We could do what we wanted. I owned the place. The clock wasn't ticking on the money. Jeff had called me and Mick had called me to come back into the group. They wanted to rejoin Dokken.
Right.
And we said, okay, and we wrote Dysfunctional with no rules because the grunge scene was really happening in 92 and 3.
Mm-hmm.
We did Dysfunctional in 94.
Right.
And I said, we don't give a shit what's popular. Let's just write what we like. And you listen to Dysfunctional, heavy influence of the Beatles, Stones, the Hollies, all these great bands, the Graham Nash type of arrangements. And we came up some really cool, heavy songs. The album was written without George. It was just Jeff, Mick, and I wrote the entire record.
Right.
So there was no fighting. There was no arguing. There was no, I don't want to do this. We got along. We had fun. Jeff lived, an hour away. He drove in this little piece of crap car every day and drove down to my studio in Redondo Beach. And he was very driven. He came down every day. He produced me. I produced him. We both produced Mick. It was a very symbiotic, healthy writing, and it reflects it on the songs on Dysfunctional. So that's why I think it's our best record. And
Yeah.
George came in at the end. George was like the icing on the cake. George joined the band in the 11th hour. Jeff and I had done all the solos. George came back in. We cut the rhythms and put his style of rhythm playing on the songs. He did the solos over. So he put the spin, the Dokken spin, I guess you could call it, under Dysfunctional, and we had a great record. It sold 400,000 copies in like the first 8 weeks.
Wow.
And then unfortunately, the label decided, Columbia decided they didn't want to do rock. They wanted to concentrate on R&B and rap and blues. So they got dropped. So they just threw in the towel and never even did a video. It was a shame. It was a wasted record.
Yeah, it's one of those second look records. I think back in 95 when it came out, people went, oh, it's Dokken, that's part of yesterday's scene. But I think now in 2015, people are going, hey, you know what? That was a pretty damn good record that we missed out on. And I think it's actually grown in people's hearts, if I can say that. And it really is a solid record. And if you haven't listened to it, or if in 1995 you said, oh, this is crap, go back and listen to it again. I think you'll be pleasantly surprised if you put on sort of your new listening ears, as Judge Judy would say. Yeah, you're right. It is a good album.
Yeah, it wasn't fashionable for its time.
Right,
But
exactly.
if you listen to it now, 20 years later, it's 20th anniversary this Sunday when it came out.
Yep.
On WMMT is doing a full retrospect for 2 hours on the Dysfunctional album. They're playing the whole entire record.
Wow.
And I'm breaking down each song, what it's about, all the inspirations. And it stood the test of time, let's put it this way. If somebody goes out and buys the Dokken records, Tooth and Nail, Breaking the Chains, Under Lock and Key, Back the Attack, the famous records, multi-platinum, you go out and get Dysfunctional, you'll say, wow, this sounds current.
Listen,
it was 20 years ago.
I would love to hear Too High to Fly, either at Heavy Montreal or somewhere along the road this year, just as a little 20th anniversary nod and say, hey, you know what, folks? Just don't forget this album. That's be kind of fun.
We do it.
Oh,
we
good.
do play two. We play two out of fly every time we headline.
Oh, perfect. Well, then I got to go see a headline show as well as Heavy Montreal. Don, always a pleasure to talk to you, and definitely looking forward to your gig in Montreal. That'll be a lot of fun for me.
Yep.
And
we haven't played Canada. We haven't played Canada since we on the Aerosmith Dysfunctional tour. So it's been a long time, except for a couple shows after that. As far as a big arena, a lot of people.
Wasn't that the Permanent Vacation tour in '87?
Yep.
Holy mackerel!
We did that.
Yeah, I know. I saw you at the Montreal Forum on that tour. It was an incredible show because Permanent Vacation hadn't become a hit yet, so there was only about and there was only like about 3,000 people at the Forum. I mean, it was almost like a private show. And Dokken came on, and you sounded fantastic. And Aerosmith came on and said, you know what? It's only the diehard motherfuckers here tonight. And then they went into this set of like Bone to Bone, Coney Island, Whitefish Boy, all these like completely whacked out songs. And it was absolutely brilliant. It was fantastic. One of my favorite concerts of my youth, actually. A great double bill. And hey, looking forward to seeing something equally as great in August. So there you go. Great night that was. So yeah, it's been 30 years. It's been 30 years. Wow.
30 years.
There you go. Don, as I said, always a pleasure, and let's talk again soon, and definitely at the Heavy Montreal show.
See you soon, Mitch.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye now. There you have it, folks, my chat with Don Dokken, of course, playing Montreal at the Heavy Montreal Festival August 9th, and of course that whole weekend, August 7th, 8th, and 9th. Please check out HeavyMontreal.com. Bands like Korn, Faith No More, Slipknot, Iggy Pop, and more. Lita Ford, I can't forget to mention Lita Ford. And soon, hopefully soon, Firehouse, right, Bill? We're going to work on that. That's my project for the years.
I appreciate it, dude. That'd be awesome. I want to play Montreal again. That would be just such a great gig to play.
And a festival is such a great chance because you're playing to some of the audience that are not there for you, and you get to win them over. You get a chance to be with all these different bands that your fans that have come to see you might not go see, and so they get to discover new bands as well. It really is a win-win situation for everybody. And of course, for $100 you get 60 bands. Where do you get that? You don't get that anymore.
That's a great deal. You can't get that on Amazon.com.
No way. But you can get your new single Strong on Amazon.com and at Google Play and at iTunes. Got to mention that, right? Because
it's a great segue, man. You're the man.
It's a strong song.
I appreciate it, brother.
By the way, we've mentioned Strong over the last 3, 4, or more episodes that you've co-hosted. Is there another one coming soon?
There is another one, but I'd be remiss if I didn't talk about the ones before this. So I did another one that your audience might like called "The Bloom Is Off the Rose," and I actually did a video for that. So if you go to YouTube and type in my name and type in "The Bloom Is Off the Rose," you can check out that song. It's I wouldn't say it's real heavy, but it's a rockin' tune, and it's a little bit dark. So that's one that your listeners might dig.
That would be great. And of course, for information about HeavyMontreal.com. Bill, always a pleasure. And Don, great having you on as a guest today. So just a quick shout out to Don Dokken for having done that. Bill, again, let's do this soon. We've got a bunch of great interviews coming up. I spoke to drummer Ken Mary, who played with Alice Cooper in House of Lords. I believe you know him as well.
Oh, he's a great guy. I've played on some of his side project things.
Would certainly love to have you come on and co-host that episode if you're up for it. And of course, let's remind the folks, Leverty.com, HeavyMontreal.com. Dokken is over on Facebook. There you go. Another great one.
Thanks a lot, brother.
Thank you, Bill.
See ya.